He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This One's Wife. The Thieving Podcast. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Before I tell you about the latest criticism of this one's wife's behaviour, there currently is a 50% discount on everything in the Knowledge Vault with a small number of exceptions. If you want to learn more about narcissism and how to protect yourself, or if you want to be entertained, if you want to be educated, if you want to, for instance, access the Funding Freedom Finding Dollars parody that I've undertaken, well, you can get 50% off that and other material besides. All you need to do is go to the Knowledge Vault, link in the video description, and at checkout use the code SOMEGREATREWARD. Some Great Reward. All joined together, lowercase. Please note this doesn't apply to audio consultations, narc detectors, empath detectors, trait detectors, weaponized empath detectors, email consultations, 22 minutes, or additional word bundles. Fill your boots. Why not? It's the weekend. Now then, what's this about this one's wife engaging in some thieving? Well, we know that she steals character traits. We know that she steals Aquazura shoes. We know that she's been stealing a living, in effect. This one's wife holds herself out as an empowered feminist. She isn't one. This is what her narcissism tells her that she should be and what she should talk about in order to project a particular facade. Her behaviour demonstrates that she isn't, because she doesn't like women. Furthermore, she uses men and is attracted more to men because they serve her purposes. Indeed, she's only got anywhere in life as a consequence of reliance upon her father, Trevor Engelson, Corey Vitiello, and in particular by virtue of marrying the dim-witted ginger prince, Harry. Were she not able to have ensnared him and marry him, very few of us would have ever heard of this woman. This demonstrates hypocrisy, for she holds herself out as being a champion of women's rights. And then, as Gwen Farrell writes, this one's wife's new podcast is a vanity project that robs women of what they really need. If you're slightly confused by this one's wife and Harry's podcast history, you aren't alone. It's true that the two secured a cushy podcasting deal with media giant Spotify in 2020. It then talks about what that was, and then they parted company, and although it's described as mutual, Bill Simmons referring to them, of course, as fucking grifters. Familiar territory. The article then explains that this left this one's wife shopping for a new home. Yes, indeed. And she found this in Lemonada Media. Lemonada has also produced award-winning projects from the likes of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and has a range of podcasts covering everything from the national opioid crisis to exploring the concept of failure with David Duchovny. As its name suggests, this one's wife's newest endeavour, Confessions of a Female Founder, is meant to be an intimate one-on-one exploration of the struggle for achievement and female success through the perspectives of powerhouses dominating their respective fields. She describes it as a conversation of female entrepreneurs and friends about the sleepless nights, the lessons learned, and the laser focus that got them where they are today. But is it? Though any reasonable listener would assume that the podcast is a retrospective on the themes of female stereotypes, maintaining a normative work-life balance and other challenges that female founders face, the actual execution of those goals is puzzling, to say the least. If you're hoping to be a female billionaire, or an app founder like this one's wife's first guest, former Bumble CEO Whitney Wolfe Herd, it's best to look for insights or advice on how to accomplish those objectives elsewhere. This one's wife's narcissism is showing. Fortunately, you don't have to get far into the episode to realise quickly that something is amiss. As opposed to starting with where it all began for you, this one's wife tells both her guest and her listeners, I want to start with where we first met, naturally bringing it all back to her. What follows is Wolfe Herd telling the audience, amidst a backdrop of this one's wife politely giggling, useless interviewer, that she met the Duke and Duchess inappropriately dressed because she was on her way to a New Year's Eve party. we receive no background on this One's Wife guest, a billionaire and one of the first designers of the modern dating app landscape as we know it. Instead, we are offered an intimate portrait of their cosy relationship and invited into a carnival funhouse of strange reality contorting mirrors. Both media experts and basic connoisseurs of podcasts would agree that interviewing is not everyone's cup of tea, nor are most people naturally gifted at it, no matter how cheap and accessible podcasting equipment may be these days. This One's Wife asks no questions of Wolf Herd that don't also connect to her in some way. And as you all know, this is because she can't stand for the attention to be on her guest. It has to be on her. And her less evolved form of narcissism causes this to come to the fore because she has no talent at interviewing, no talent at asking questions, so it stands out a mile. The conversation feels pretentious and stilted at times, instead of raw and keenly honest. But as is this One's Wife's customary behaviour, alongside her previous podcast, her philanthropic endeavours, her lifestyle brand and her Netflix series, she's determined to do it whether she's talented at it or not. And of course, as we all know, the usual outcome is she's not talented at it, but she's blind to her shortcomings because her narcissism makes her continue to push forward. Perhaps that's the biggest condemnation one could levy both against the podcast and this One's Wife herself. This One's Wife is fortunate enough to have the heavy hitters in her corner, the CEOs, the journalists, the actors, the tech entrepreneurs, but instead of serving her audience something meaningful and original, she's serving herself, which once again demonstrates how fucking useless she is, that she has a glorious opportunity to ask questions of these individuals, that she's granted access to them as a consequence of the man that she married, and instead she just serves up herself, a boring, bland, jobbing actress and pleasure bot. There's little to no structure to the episode, which works for some productions, but that's also because there's no substance. Where there should be depth and honesty, there's insincerity and a heavily contrived appearance. Where there should be practical guidance about success, how to organise your days as a working mum, how to manage a startup, or even bring one to life, how to find investors, there's excessive praise and a fawning conversation that could have happened in line at a coffee shop, as opposed to a podcast platform. We may have thought the tradwife movement was successful enough to usurp the girl boss archetype, but if Confessions of a Female Founder is any indication, the girl boss is alive and well, and she lives in a mansion in Monty Shitshow. In one particular anecdote, this One's Wife recounts that when her daughter Lilibet wakes up from a nap, she'll often interrupt this One's Wife meetings with executives, because the toddler knows where her mother's office is and comes in even when her door is closed. But I wouldn't have it any other way, gushes this One's Wife. Any working mom who's actually experienced this would likely say that it's awkward, even if you laugh about it in the break room after the fact. But this One's Wife is just built differently. Juggling kids and a marriage to a high-profile man is effortless to her, even though having money and childcare probably don't hurt either. I would also suggest that her reaction and response to all of this is such that probably it isn't the case that Lilibet interrupts her. She just says that happens in order to try and make herself relatable. Whitney Wolfe Herd too has children, but she doesn't necessarily offer wisdom on how to combat others' perceptions of both being a mum and a billionaire, nor does she offer any counsel to young ambitious women on how to navigate a dating world that she quite literally created. Instead, you should watch my video, Why You Should Not Use Online Dating. We're not given directions on how to prioritise family in a fast-paced lifestyle, or how to approach discussing your professional goals with your spouse. Instead, there's a conversation about which packing material this One's Wife should use for the artisanal jam her lifestyle brand supplies. It's this kind of absurdity that taints the conversation with an air of contrived superiority, and not the honesty that women who seek success need to hear. The overall tone of the near 60-minute episode could be described as a staggering effort to uphold the girl boss standard. This does make some logical sense, in that both this One's Wife and her guest are millennials, and that's the flavour of feminism that they know and love. But while it's easy to conjure an image of this One's Wife in yoga pants and a messy bun in an impeccably curated home office dotted with toys, it's also a straightforward realisation that whilst this one's wife may attempt to be relatable, she's not obtainable. Knowledge of who she really is behind the public-facing facade, which could actually endear listeners to her insight rather than alienate them, is still a close-kept secret. Well, it's not. You all know what she is. You know that she's a narcissist, and you know what that means. Women with dreams and ambitions are often told that they'll achieve their goals just by working hard or wanting it enough, or even by sacrificing their personal lives. In this one's wife's case, instead of breaking down the barrier on what it really means to work and to create while building a family, she's turning around and selling a beige brand of hustle culture to her audience, with her own trademark logo stamped on it. Confessions of a Female Founder isn't a character study of success and ambition, but one of mediocrity and even narcissism. What's worse is that there are genuinely women out there looking for role models, for guidance, for girl-to-girl advice on how to make it and become a founder themselves. But if the first episode is anything to go by, you won't find that with the Duchess of Sussex. An articulate review lamenting the absence of the provision of information that women might really need, identifying that this is just a narcissistic vanity project coming from a woman who knows nothing about business, and therefore is described as someone who is effectively robbing women of what they really need. That this woman is given a platform because of her association with Harry, where she just spouts her usual word salad, beige guff, and fridge magnet platitudes, whilst wasting an opportunity to provide actual information and ask meaningful questions of guests that might be able to convey such information. Another thorough review, which shows what a waste of time her podcast is, and highlights how she is no friend to the women, even though she thinks that she is. Once again, the hypocrisy, the vapid nature of this narcissist is writ large. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.